Morning, Coach.
Morning, Mitch. What?
Noah's back at practice, probably a week, maybe plus now. How's he looking football wise, and more importantly, just how's his mood? The last couple months he's had where he hasn't known what to expect, and now it looks like maybe the door's starting to open. How's he just doing with that news evolving?
Well, first, back in practice, he looks good. He hasn't missed a beat. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit of rest, but just in terms of pre-snap and pre-snap identification, things of that nature, he's fallen right back into it. Just his mindset. I mean, he's handled it. Noah's been upright, up forth about what's happened. He's not shied away from any type of blame. He knows his responsibility and what he did, and that part you admire. But just from the standpoint of he's been great for the young guys. He's been great for the old guys. Like having Noah Shannon around is really good for the older guys that are there and the young guys. And for me, just the chance to get him back to play. I'm happy for him to be able to get back to play whenever the NCAA decides what they're going to do. But right now he's practicing. Whether he gets to play or not, wherever it goes, he's practicing, and it just sets a really good example for the guys that are in the room. And couldn't be happier for the guy. I hope I get him back, man. He's like having a weighted blanket. You sleep better at night knowing he's on the field. So keeping our fingers crossed.
All right, next question is from Scott Docterman.
Yeah, Kelvin, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the way the defensive line has played the last couple of weeks. Seems to be really getting into a groove, settling in, attacking the attacking the passer. In what ways has this group made some strides over the last couple of weeks?
I think the last couple of weeks has really been, them. First, I'll say the work that they've done. There hasn't been a bad day. And I think that in anything, if you're working in earnest, if you're really and truly coming in every day with the approach that I'm going to improve, that I'm going to get better, regardless of, if the results on the field look the way that you want them to, it never deterred them from coming back the following Monday and getting right back to work. So what I think you're seeing is just a culmination of all the work that's been done before. And probably in the mindset of the guys, just them amongst themselves, not being as uptight, not trying to be perfect, and kind of letting the game come to them. I felt like early on, these young people, the things that they read, the things that they digest, the expectations that get set from outside the building, they could think they were kind of pressing. But I think really just, over the past couple of weeks, just digging back into themselves, getting back into themselves, holding each other accountable, being accountable to themselves first, but then holding each other accountable for getting the job done. And not really worried about or checking the stat line, just worried about playing together and having fun. I think that's what you've seen over the past couple of weeks.
Next question is from John Steppe.
Hey, Kelvin, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
With a guy like Logan Lee, who's now third-year starter, how have you seen him continue to grow?
From the standpoint of just the leadership is what I see out of Logan. I mean, obviously, from the physical side, not saying that he can't get much better, but he's one of the top guys in the room in terms of just the fundamentals and knowing what to do. It's not something that I have to worry about Logan doing or want to continue to develop, but just his ability to lead. And in a team sport, it's not enough to just be worried about your own individual behaviors and your own individual performance if you're going to play in a team sport. And that's where he's really, I think, grown over the past 3 years. Is he knows that he alone is not enough, that the standard that he holds himself to, he needs to hold his teammates to it as well, regardless of it's on the defensive line, in the defense, or just on the team. So that's where I've seen him grow the most, just the accountability, not just to self, but being confident enough to hold others accountable too.
Next question is from Chad Leistico.
Hi, Kelvin. Was YA able to practice today? And if you have to go without him on Saturday, whether you do or not, who are guys that you trust on the field to fill in a defensive tackle after Lee, Black, Graves, and a little bit of Pittman?
Yeah, well, he did not go today, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't play. I mean, last week I didn't see Joe Evans until Saturday morning. So, it's kind of one of those things that happens in terms of who steps in. the thing gets absorbed. It gets absorbed, and whether I've been playing with 4 guys, I've got no problem playing with 3. I think Aaron Graves can step in and do a good job. I trust Pittman. As the next guy in. Guys after that, you talk about Luke Gaffney, you talk about Ontario Thompson. They're not quite ready yet, but I feel very confident in the 3 guys that have practiced this week, and I think that's how we'll get that done. If he can go or if he can't go, those guys will absorb that void.
Next question is from Tyler Cashman.
Hey, Coach, how are you doing?
Great.
With just seeing what Noah's gone through the last, I guess, handful of months, what has it been like for you to see him kind of deal with the roller coaster of things that have happened, and how have you kind of tried to help him through that?
I think what I see from the roller coaster of things that have happened, it just gives me confidence that Noah Shannon, long after football is over, is going to be successful. Because life comes at you in waves. Every month's not going to be the month of May. It's not always going to be sunshine for you. And the kid's definitely dealt with his share of adversity, but it hasn't hurt his attitude. It hasn't hurt his his outlook on things. And moments like these are going to make him stronger going forward, because taxes, death, and trouble, those things you can't avoid. That's what's going to happen in life, and he's learning that at an early age, and it's going to bode well for him going forward. Just the intestinal fortitude, the grit, the perseverance that he's shown. In face of all that adversity, it hasn't changed his outlook. So and just for me as a coach, when we talk about the development of these young people, it's not just football. Like, it's not just X's and O's. If you came into our meeting room, X's and O's is, it's probably 45% of what we talk about. We're into the development of young people, the development of young men, to be able to, go through these trials and tribulations of life, because they're going to happen. Myself and Coach Neiman, guys, we're older. We've already lived the days that these kids are living through right now. So, we just try to share our experiences from times where we've been disappointed, where times where we felt wrong, and just try to help those guys navigate through it.
Next question is from Adam Jacoby.
Hey, Coach Bell, appreciate your time today. The defensive line held Wisconsin's running game to, I want to say, was 103 yards, and the Badgers came into that game leading the Big Ten in rushing. Did you expect a performance like that, holding that running game in check? And also, how would you evaluate their performance?
First, I'll get to Wisconsin first off. That's always a challenge. I got a text from a friend, and he congratulated me on the win and how the guys played. And Wisconsin's always. She said that Wisconsin is always a barometer, of the line of scrimmage, and if it's healthy or not, because of how they play. And I know they've changed their system around a little bit, but those are still the same guys, some of the same guys that we've played the last 3 years. So, we always go into the game knowing that we need to stop the run, knowing that we need to neutralize the run game, and how we do that is, I think, extremely unique to Iowa in terms of the way that we play. So yeah, just to be able to limit the run game as much as we did, with as big as that offensive line is and as talented as the running back is, I think that's a step in the right direction for it bodes well for the rest of the defense if we can take that away. And then how I think they perform, I'm a tough critic on these guys. I still think there's a lot of meat on the bone that we left in that game. A lot of meat on the bone, and I think we can be so much better. I'm happy with the result, but I don't ever want these guys to become complacent or think they've arrived and think that was good enough, because it's not. I'm glad we won the game. I'm glad we got the trophy back, but the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. So we're on to Minnesota.
Thanks a lot.
Next question is from Mitch Vick.
Coach, we haven't seen a ton of Brian Allen this year, but boy, that kid's day, he had 4 or 5 plays where your eyes just go wide. He seems like when he does get his opportunity, he is really going to be something. What has his progress been like now that we've gotten the fall?
He's a young player that's young and growing. I talk to my guys all the time about consistency. Talk to my guys all the time about confidence. And we live in a culture right now where, because of social media and videos and stuff, anyone can take a snapshot and try to make a novel out of it. He had a really good kids day. and he's a kid that's progressing. I enjoy having him here. I think his future's bright. He's got a chance to be a really good player here. He's got to keep progressing. He's got to keep focusing on the finer details of how we play football, so that he can fit in that mix in the future.
Next question is from Scott Docterman.
I want to ask you about Minnesota last year. There's no Mo Ibrahim, and a couple of their better players are in the NFL, but they still have that physical style of play. They still like to run inside zone. They would still do their kind of pitch, which is kind of unique. But what challenges do they provide your unit, and how do you prevent from, what happened last year? I mean, 300 yards was probably not exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, that's it. 300 yards is not what we want. I think the year before they were 186. We don't want that. I think the year before they were 150. We don't want that either. They do a really good job. Their offensive line coach, Coach Callahan, outstanding coach. And what they've done is they've really simplified their run game. And it goes back to the quote. I said a quote, a couple of years ago, Bruce Lee about, practicing one kick 10,000 times instead of 10,000 kicks. They've got one kick, and they practice the hell out of it. They do a really good job at it. It's part of their system. It's part of their scheme. They do a really good job at it. And it's going to be up to us, the old adage of execution. We have to execute better because we got a pretty good idea of what they're going to do, but they got a pretty good idea of where we're going to be. And, nose to nose, eye to eye, it's going to be the guy that has the most grit, and the guy that can get off block and make a play that's going to be successful, or for their standpoint, staying on us so that we can't do it. It's an incredible challenge, back-to-back, Wisconsin and then to Minnesota. The things are at stakes in terms of the rivalry games and things of that nature. But, the challenge for us is to, the last three times we played these guys, I think they've won the line of scrimmage. There's make no bones about that. The challenge for us is to try to get that back. I think if we can do that, then we'll have success.
John Steppe.
Whether it be your time as a coach here or your time as a player, what's been kind of the key to the consistency of this defensive unit over the last few decades?
It's definitely the people. It's the people that have been here. I think when you talk about Coach Parker, 24 years, Coach Parker was one of the first coaches to come to my high school in January of 2000 to recruit me. That's how long he's been here. That's how long I've known him. So you talk about the familiarity with the defense, and the defense has changed. And we talk about the defense has changed a lot. The structure looks the same. The bones look the same, but that a lot has changed because of what's changed offensively. And you talk about back in the early 2000s, everybody was under center, and you didn't have to account for the quarterback in the run game. No one had to account for I'm blanking on the name right now, but any of those Michigan quarterbacks from the early 2000s, you didn't have to worry about them running the ball. They were under center. They handed the ball off. Where now, the aspect of a +1 run game, of a quarterback that can run it, and the gaps that get created. I mean, like I said, our structure is the same, but we're definitely different just in terms of how we have to play. But when you take the continuity of Coach Parker being here, you talk about Coach Wallace, who GA'd here in the mid 2000s, myself as a player and a GA, and then you take the overall knowledge of football from Coach Neiman. It's a pretty good mix of guys right there that understand what needs to be done and get the ball stopped.
Tyler Tashman.
We heard about it. Sounded like before the Purdue game, there was a players only meeting within the D-line room. I guess just when did you hear about that, and what was sort of your reaction just to kind of the player-led leadership?
I heard about that meeting, I think like the Thursday after the Purdue game. I think I read something about it in the newspaper. But I'll tell you, the precursor for that meeting was one of the worst Friday practices that I've ever seen. Going into the game, Friday is supposed to be Purple Shorts Day. That's the day that things are supposed to be polished. That's the day that, you're supposed to tie a bow on things. You want to feel confident about what you're doing. And that Friday before Purdue was absolutely horrid, with guys with just a terrible lack of respect for the ball. They came out there and basically went through the motions. We jumped off sides like 4 or 5 times. So after that practice was over, we had a very clear and blunt conversation about what I thought about practice and what I had thought about them, coming forward. Just the complacency, and I felt like we missed an opportunity. So that blunt conversation that we had after practice probably led to that player-only meeting.
Elliot.
There we go. Good morning, Coach Bell. Good to see you.
Good to see you
So,
too.
One thing that you mentioned regarding the Wisconsin game is that you were happy with what you saw, but there was meat left on the bone. What was some of that meat left on the bone? And then second part to the question is, 8 straight weeks of football is a lot before the bye week. How are you keeping your guys engaged?
That's two good questions. Well, the meat left on the bone for me was the third quarter. I felt like, we had Wisconsin in check, from a run game standpoint. We got the quarterback knocked out of the game, and we knew that in the third quarter that, that first drive coming out after halftime is going to be critical because we're just nursing, the lead's not insurmountable. So, they're only a play away from tying it up. But I felt like in the third quarter, we bled some yardage there that we didn't need to. And part of it, a lot of it was X and O. It wasn't physical per se. It was calls that were being made, guys not having their eyes in the right place, and then the ball snapped, and then now I'm out of position. And it looks a lot worse on tape physically than what it really is. So that's why I think, if we can't have those mental lapses, if we can play 4 quarters of football where everybody's on the same page, not just talking about the defensive line, but just defensively, 4 quarters where everybody's on the same page and everybody's looking at the same thing, I think we got a chance to be really good and not have those lapses. Just in terms of staying engaged after 8 weeks, I just talked to the guys. I'm a receipt keeper. That's what I am. Like, I don't throw a lot of. I scan things. I save a lot of text messages. I save a lot of DMs because I want to remind people of the things that they tell me they want. Okay, and then when I see them, when I see the actions aren't reflective of what they say they want, I remind them of that. So you can think about that just in your personal life, things that you want to achieve, things that you say you believe in, but I'm also watching what you do. So just a constant reminder to the guys, hey, you set these goals in the off season. These are the things that you want to achieve. What it's going to take to get that done. Okay. And if you're not willing to do that work, if you're not willing to do the work to go get the things that you say that you want, then stop talking about it. Okay. Don't talk about it, be about it. So it's a very mature take, I think. But the challenge is if you want to be mature enough and be disciplined enough to go get it.
All right, Kelvin, thank you very much for your time this morning.
All right.